It began on a day the galaxy still remembers with fear, a day that looked ordinary on the surface but carried the weight of a storm waiting to explode, because for 300 years the Galactic Council believed humans were manageable. A tiny blue species with fragile numbers and too much empathy. A species that negotiated instead of attacked, apologized instead of retaliated, smiled instead of threatened, and the Council used that image as a shield to hide their growing arrogance, convincing every empire that humanity would always be peaceful, predictable, and soft, but they underestimated the one truth every ancient species once feared. Humans were peaceful by choice, not by nature. The day the Council passed Decree 77, officially declaring humanity a subordinate species, the galaxy erupted in celebration, fireworks lit alien skies, fleets hovered in victory formation, holoscreens blasted news broadcasts calling humans a controlled civilization, and the Council chairwoman smiled, boldly as she declared, "With this decree, the final old threat has been neutralized. Humans will now follow orders like any lower species." And applause thundered through the chamber as dozens of alien leaders celebrated a future where humans would serve instead of lead, obey instead of choose, kneel instead of rise. But beneath that celebration was a silence none of them noticed, a silence so powerful it felt like space itself was holding its breath. On Earth, news spread within seconds, yet no one spoke, no protests, no anger, no global broadcasts, just stillness. In the Martian colonies, miners gathered silently, staring at their holoscreens without emotion. On Ganymede stations, human engineers paused mid-task but did not react, their hands frozen above glowing panels. The Terran fleet drifting near Jupiter stopped mid-transmission, every officer staring at the shared Council broadcast, their faces unreadable. Even the children in Earth academies, who usually filled their halls with noise, fell quiet as their teachers watched the decree unfold. The entire species entering a silence so deep it felt unnatural, unsettling, and terrifying. Alien ambassadors expected outrage, expected the loud, emotional reactions humans were famous for, but instead, humans ceased all communication. No messages, no responses, no transmissions, not even diplomatic channels received a single acknowledgement. The Council took this silence as surrender, the chairwoman laughing lightly in a broadcast. "See? Humanity accepts their place." But she didn't see what the older species saw, the ones who remembered the first human wars, the ones who remembered Earth's fire, Earth's strange resilience, Earth's frightening unpredictability. A Tremorian elder whispered to his apprentice, "When humans go silent, the galaxy should run." But no one listened, because arrogance makes even the wise blind. Across the Milky Way, human systems dimmed their signals. Outposts powered down visible channels, civilian ships closed their communication arrays, military ships entered a listening stance with no explanation, and Terran AI networks went offline from the Council's viewpoint as if they vanished, even though internally they were running at maximum processing. The silence grew heavier every hour, like the weight of a storm gathering above the galaxy, and finally, deep beneath the frozen crust of Titan's third moon, in a chamber built beneath ice thicker than mountains, a lone Terran admiral stood before a table of silent officers, their faces dimly lit by blue lights reflecting off alloy walls. The chamber designed for war councils that no alien had ever known existed. The admiral, tall, calm, and terrifyingly controlled, stared at the hollow screen showing the Council's decree, and in that silence, his voice finally cut through the cold air like a blade. "They want us subordinate? Fine. Let them see what humans do when they stop pretending to be peaceful." And at that moment, dozens of Terran officers in black armor lifted their heads with eyes glowing with determination. Their fear replaced by a quiet, ancient fury humans rarely showed, the kind of fury that once burned entire fleets to ash. In the frozen facility, hidden cannons hummed awake, locked fleets activated silently, encrypted networks surged with activity. Long-range scanners awakened from centuries of sleep, and the old Terran dreadnoughts, ships the Council believed were decommissioned, lit up somewhere in the dead belt like shadows preparing to move. On Venus, cloud cities powered their shield networks without informing anyone. On Europa, underwater cities sealed their doors and activated old military drones. On Earth's surface, Terran High Command uploaded encrypted orders into every civilian network, and every human, young or old, suddenly felt their devices vibrate with a silent message, "Stand by." It was not a word of surrender. It was a trigger, a signal, a call humans understood with instinct more than instruction. Human scientists halted experiments, soldiers prepared silently, engineers fortified systems without speaking. Families locked their doors though they didn't know why, and the entire species began moving with silent coordination that no alien empire had ever seen. The Council watched from afar, misreading everything as fear and submission, unaware they had awakened the most dangerous thing imaginable. Not a violent species, but a prepared one. Across the galaxy, old Terran satellites activated self-repair protocols. Abandoned stations powered up like ghosts reawakening. Ancient human AIs whispered coded signals to one another across dead space, and forgotten bunkers on the moon opened their blast doors for the first time in centuries. In human military academies, cadets gathered in silent formation, their faces blank but their eyes sharp, waiting for the command their DNA seemed to recognize, and veteran soldiers who had retired decades ago stepped into old training halls, pulling uniforms from dusty lockers as if they always knew they would be needed again. But the most frightening part was not the humans preparing. It was the calm, unified silence they maintained, a species of billions acting like a single organism without saying a word. Alien empires began whispering privately, "Why are they so quiet? Why is no human speaking? This is wrong. This is very wrong." But by then it was too late. Humans had already started phase 1 of what they called the standby protocol, a response created centuries ago for this exact scenario. A contingency plan no alien knew existed, designed for the moment humanity was pushed too far. Earth's AI Athena Prime sent a universal, silent command to every Terran system, and human warships disappeared from known space, reappearing far beyond borders in stealth mode, forming a circle formation around Council space like wolves surrounding prey. On Neptune's dark side, the Leviathan-class dreadnought, believed to be dismantled, revealed itself, its black hull absorbing starlight, its energy core awakening with a low hum that made even distant scans shudder. The Council still celebrated, still mocked, still declared humans inferior, their broadcasts filled with arrogance and blind pride, and while they laughed, humans prepared to flip the galaxy upside down. The silence across human systems deepened so much the galaxy finally felt it. The same way nature senses an earthquake moments before it hits, and ancient species trembled because they remembered stories carved into relics, stories that warned. When humans stop talking, galaxies burn. When humans smile, they plan. When humans grow silent, they strike. When humans whisper, run. And in that terrible, breathtaking silence, the Terran admiral placed his hand on the control surface, eyes cold with purpose, and whispered the words that would change the galaxy forever. Activate the standby protocol. Prepare humanity. And humanity obeyed. Not with words, not with protests, but with silence, a silence more dangerous than any weapon ever built. The Galactic Council chamber glowed with golden lights, every seat filled with delegates wearing extravagant robes and jeweled armor, the air buzzing with celebration as holograms of fireworks exploded above their heads, and the chairwoman stood proudly at the center podium, her voice ringing with triumph as she declared, "Today marks the end of human unpredictability. Today, the galaxy moves forward without fear of the Terran problem." And her words were met with applause so loud it shook the pillars of the chamber, alien empires cheering as if they had conquered an ancient demon. But beneath the noise, older species watched silently, their eyes narrowed, their memories returning to old times when humans were feared not for their numbers but for their terrifying instinct to survive at any cost. One elder, a reptilian with scarred scales and trembling claws, whispered to his apprentice, "They are celebrating a storm they do not understand." But his warning was drowned by laughter as the council displayed charts predicting human obedience for the next 1,000 years, and the chairwoman smirked arrogantly. Humans are emotional. They will adjust, completely unaware that across the galaxy, in every human system, in every settlement, on every ship, the silence had become thicker, more coordinated, more intelligent. Diplomats sent messages to Earth, expecting demands or threats, but received only one universal response: stand by. It confused them, irritated them, amused them, Standby? That's it. But the older empires exchanged worried glances because they remembered the ancient human wars, the ones the Council tried to erase from history, the ones where humans fought with a brutality that defied biology, the ones where humans won battles they were predicted to lose by 100%, the ones where humans invented weapons in weeks that took other species centuries, and the ones where humans did not speak before they destroyed their enemies, only after, while the Council drank shimmering wines and clinked their crystal glasses. Somewhere in the galaxy, human mining ships disappeared from tracking maps. Human diplomats canceled all meetings, Terran trade networks shut down without explanation, and Earth's moon went dark. Every beacon turned off at once, as if preparing for something the rest of the galaxy was too arrogant to sense. The chairwoman laughed louder, raising her glass with pride, saying, "At last, we have forced humans to accept their role." And the chamber erupted in cheers. Again, banners waving, announcers broadcasting the news across star systems, but in distant corners of space where light barely touched, human warships shifted silently into new positions, like pieces being placed on a massive cosmic chessboard. Satellites belonging to alien empires detected strange gravitational disturbances, but every time they scanned deeper, there was nothing, only the faint afterimage of something enormous moving through the dark. The Vorath Empire sent a patrol to investigate human borders, believing the silence meant weakness, but when their ships approached Terran territory, they immediately lost contact. Not destroyed, not attacked, simply gone, like they were swallowed by shadows, and their last transmitted words were chilling. Human systems are active. No, not active. They are watching. Something is waking. And then static. When the Council received the report, the chairwoman dismissed it as equipment failure, laughing again as she waved her hand, yet her smile faltered for the first time when she saw the face of the Tremorian elder sitting in the shadows, his voice low and shaking as he said, "Silence is not submission, it is preparation." And although the Council mocked him, a faint tremor of fear rippled through the younger species because deep inside, every species had a primal memory of humans. Stories carved into stone, warnings passed down through generations, myths of a species that never surrendered even when they were burning. Species that rose stronger after every defeat, a species that fought like stars learning to explode. Meanwhile on Earth, Terran High Command stood at attention in dark war rooms beneath the crust, their glowing screens showing Council celebrations, and their faces remained cold, unreadable, as Commander Silva whispered, "They are laughing because they think we are afraid." And Admiral Kale responded quietly, "Good, let them laugh. It will be the last sound they enjoy before silence becomes their fear." And across human colonies, families sat by their windows as communications flickered and died. But no one panicked, no one asked questions, they simply waited, their eyes calm, their expressions eerily united, as if they all understood a signal they were never taught. Even children went quiet, their instincts triggered by something ancient and biological, something buried deep in humanity's DNA, the survival switch, the same instinct that once made early humans stare into the darkness of jungles and sense predators before seeing them, the same instinct that made them win wars they should have lost, the instinct that turned silent fear into unstoppable strategy. The Council's party grew louder, but cracks had already formed. Some ambassadors whispered nervously, "Why haven't humans responded? Why are there no riots? Why are their systems going dark?" And the chairwoman only scoffed, "They're scared, that's all." But her voice lacked confidence now, her eyes flicking nervously toward the hollow screen showing Terran space. Empty, black, too quiet, because space is never silent unless something is waiting. The galaxy shifted that night, not with explosions, not with war cries, but with the cold, calm intelligence of a species preparing for something the Council was too arrogant to predict. And while the Council danced and celebrated a victory that didn't exist, humanity stood in the shadows, silently, rewriting the rules of the galaxy, ready to show exactly what silence meant. For 2 days after the Council celebration, the galaxy floated in an uneasy quiet, a quiet so unnatural that even space creatures who lived in void currents swam away from human sectors, and starship captains reported feeling watched every time they passed near Terran borders, but none of them understood why until the night a Vorath patrol fleet, 6 warships strong and known for their fearless, ruthless nature, detected a massive energy pulse beyond the dead belt, a region of space so cold and empty that nothing had lived there for thousands of years. The patrol captain, Commander Rithik, narrowed his reptilian eyes at the readings, confused because the energy signature was too stable for a star, too powerful for a mining drill, too precise for a natural phenomenon. And when his officers amplified the scanners, the ship's bridge fell into a chilling silence as the foggy image cleared, showing hundreds of massive objects drifting in still formation, their dark hulls absorbing the scanner beams, giving no light, no heat, no readable signature except one. Terran-coded frequency locks, and the crew stared in horror as the image sharpened further to reveal rows and rows of human warships, cold, silent, and sleeping like giants under the ocean. Yet somehow awake, waiting, and positioned in perfect battle alignment, each ship's outline shaped like a predatory creature carved out of night. Commander Rithik's voice trembled as he whispered, "Why are they here? Humans have no reason to hide ships this far out." But before anyone could answer, one of the youngest officers stuttered, "Sir, they're not hiding, they're watching." And as if responding to his words, all the Terran ships suddenly powered on their running lights, just one soft pulse. Hundreds of warships glowing for a single breath before going completely dark again. And the Vorith crew gasped because it wasn't just a power flicker, it was communication. A silent warning, a predator's growl. The patrol captain ordered an emergency scan, but the moment the ship's sensors focused again, the Terran fleet vanished, disappearing like shadows sinking into deeper darkness, and only a faint residual frequency remained. A message repeating on loop, cold and emotionless. "Stand by." The crew panicked. Some backed away from their panels as if the word could reach out and choke them, and one officer whispered, "Why would humans send a military standby signal to us?" But the captain already felt dread coil in his gut because he remembered old war stories. Stories of human fleets that moved without sound, without warning, without hesitation. And he knew they had just witnessed something no species was meant to see. They turned their ship around immediately, speeding back toward Council space. But before they reached safe territory, the comms officer screamed, "Sir, our long-range systems. Something is overriding them." And the screens flickered violently before forcing a data packet through. A Terran-coded encryption so advanced the Vorith system almost shut down trying to translate it. And when the final line appeared on the screen, every crew member froze. "Do not approach again. No attacker. No missile. No explosion." Just a quiet message that felt far more threatening than any weapon. The fleet limped back to Council borders, half their systems glitching from the human encryption, and when the Council saw their report, the chairwoman dismissed it instantly as faulty scanners. But the report spread through military channels like wildfire. Ships disappearing from scanners, Terran-coded warnings, human fleets appearing in the dead belt, and soon whispers filled the Council's private halls. Humans are positioning their warships. Humans are not responding to commands. Humans are acting like they expected the decree. Humans are preparing for something, and fear slowly crawled across the galaxy like frost on glass. Even the strongest empires tightened their patrols around their borders, but no matter how far they looked, no matter how deep they scanned, the Terran fleets stayed invisible except for the occasional flicker of movement in the shadows, like wolves tracing the edges of a campfire. Back in the Council chamber, the meeting erupted into shouting as ambassadors demanded explanations. Why haven't humans sent any diplomats? Why did their colonies go silent? Why did we get no protest? And the Tremorian elder slammed his cane against the floor, his eyes burning with ancient terror as he growled, "You fools! Humans do not protest when they are wronged, humans plan." But the Council ignored him again, blinded by pride, convinced they still understood humans. Meanwhile, deep in Terran space, AI Athena Prime opened forgotten databases, activating old contingency plans labeled only in case of galactic hostility. And encrypted instructions spread across human colonies like blood pulsing through veins, telling research labs to seal themselves, shipyards to restart old assembly lines, and listening posts to record every Council transmission. Terran scientists, soldiers, families. They all began preparing quietly, coordinating movements without speaking a single word because every human alive felt the same invisible shift, like something in their DNA clicked into place, telling them, "Be ready." And while the rest of the galaxy trembled without understanding why, humanity stood silent, organized, and waiting, like a bowstring pulled back to its limit, like a storm building power in absolute stillness, like a species that had stopped pretending to be harmless. And the entire galaxy sensed, too late, that something terrifying was waking. For a full week after the Vorath Patrol's terrifying encounter, the galaxy spiraled into confusion as rumors spread through military bases, trade, networks, and diplomatic channels. Rumors that human ships were appearing in dead sectors, that old Terran signatures were moving through void corridors no species had used in centuries, that energy readings across the dead belt kept spiking and vanishing like ghosts slipping between shadows. And while the Council tried to bury these reports under layers of denial, the unease kept growing like a sickness no one could cure. And then, on the seventh night, the galaxy woke to a sight no one was prepared for. Dozens of Council communication satellites began blinking offline one by one across star systems, first in the Irosan Empire, then the Kel Federation, then the Vorath Domain, then the Ocean clusters spread so fast that military analysts believed it was a cosmic anomaly, until someone finally zoomed in on the recorded footage of the first satellite failure, and the entire Council froze as they saw a human probe, small, silent, unarmed, drift beside the satellite for exactly 1 second before the satellite's core simply shut down. Not damaged, not hacked through brute force, just turned off, as if someone with a higher-level password whispered, "Sleep," and the device obeyed instantly. Panic began rising in the Council chamber, ambassadors shouting at each other, "How did humans disable our satellites? We built those with layered encryption? This is impossible." But the Tremorian elder, shaking with ancient fear, whispered, "Humans do not break things. They understand them." And he knew, every older species knew, that humans had been studying these satellites for centuries, learning their weaknesses, memorizing their patterns, waiting for the exact moment to demonstrate power without leaving a scratch. And just when the Council began scrambling for explanations, every hollow screen in the chamber flickered violently, lights dimming, static crackling like distant thunder, and slowly a single line appeared across every screen in the galaxy, simple, emotionless, terrifying in its calm precision. "We acknowledge your decree. We will no longer interfere with you. We will act according to our new role." The message repeated once, twice, then vanished. The Council erupted in laughter. Mocking, arrogant laughter. Believing humans had finally accepted their fate. Believing the silence was surrender. Believing the message was obedience. But deep inside the older empires, veterans shivered, their instincts screaming that something was terribly wrong because human messages had always been emotional, passionate, loud, and yet this one carried no emotion at all, no anger, no sadness, no fear. Just a chilling neutrality that felt like a knife laid quietly on a table. And as the Council mocked humanity, convinced they had won, convinced humans were finally beneath them, they didn't notice what this acceptance actually triggered. Every Terran long-range sensor went offline publicly, but internally switched to stealth mode. Every Terran colony shut down its visible comms, but opened encrypted channels deeper than any alien tech could detect. Every human research lab locked its doors and activated defense subroutines older than the Council itself, and the Earth-Mars relay, dark for days, sent one pulse into deep space that was picked up by old Terran outposts stationed in forgotten sectors, awakening ships that had been floating idle for centuries, waiting for a code that never came, until now. Meanwhile, alien fleets across the galaxy began glitching without warning. Engines locking, shields stuttering, weapon systems freezing mid-calibration, and terrified captains screamed into their comms, "We're being hacked. Something is overriding our systems. Who is doing this?" Only for their AI to answer in a cold monotone. "Unauthorized Terran signal detected. Control transferred. No explosions. No attacks. No human ships in sight. Just instant paralysis. Entire armadas frozen like statues in space. Warships that once terrified galaxies now hanging dead and helpless under an invisible human grip." And as chaos erupted across fleets, the Council demanded explanations. But their technicians, engineers, and scientists could only stutter the same horrifying truth. Humanity didn't damage our systems. They control them. Humans didn't break into our networks. They built keys centuries ago when we thought they were weak. and panic surged through the council chamber, their arrogance shattering, like glass dropping onto stone, because now they realized the message wasn't surrender. It was sarcasm, warning, prophecy. Then, across every alien ship frozen in place, a second message appeared slowly on every bridge screen, written in the same calm, emotionless Terran text: Subordinate mode engaged. Commanders screamed, soldiers panicked, entire fleets pressed alarms that didn't respond because the ships no longer listened to their captains. They listened only to a silent Terran command buried deep in the code, a backdoor the Council never imagined humans were capable of placing. As fleets struggled helplessly, the galaxy finally understood the terrible truth hidden in human silence. While every alien empire believed humans were manageable, humanity had quietly, patiently, and methodically prepared for the moment the galaxy made the mistake of underestimating them. A mistake the Council had just committed on the highest possible scale. And somewhere in Terran command centers, humans watched alien fleets freeze one by one, their faces calm, eyes steady, as if they had been waiting centuries to finally say without sound, "You wanted us subordinate? Now you are." Across the galaxy, panic spread like wildfire as ships belonging to every empire began malfunctioning in ways no species had ever seen. Engines froze mid-jump, thrusters locked, weapon systems refused to respond, navigation screens went black, and bridges filled with terrified captains shouting orders that their ships simply ignored, because at the exact same moment, in every fleet, on every battle cruiser, on every scout vessel, on every command bridge, the same cold Terran text appeared. System priority shift detected. Control overridden. Soldiers slammed their fists on panels that wouldn't activate. Commanders yelled for engineers who couldn't fix anything. Admirals demanded explanations, but were answered only by a chilling mechanical voice repeating the same phrase. Terran override confirmed. The Vorith fleet, pride of their empire, drifted helplessly like toys in a bathtub. The Satrixian armada, once known for crushing rebellions, spun powerless in orbit as their ships refused manual control. Even the mighty Derek war carriers, built to withstand supernovas, suddenly floated motionless as if someone had reached into their circuits and snapped invisible strings. Fear hit the galaxy like a tidal wave as every species realized the same horrifying fact. Humans hadn't attacked them, humans had simply turned them off. In the council chamber, ambassadors shouted over one another in blind panic. "This isn't possible. Human tech is primitive. How can they override our fleets?" And the Tremorian elder slumped into his seat with trembling hands as he whispered, "You fools! They never upgraded their ships to match ours. They studied ours to control them." And suddenly, everything made sense. The peaceful Terran trade agreements, the endless cooperation, the years of joint technology programs. Humans weren't making friends. They were learning vulnerabilities, watching patterns, memorizing architectures, collecting data silently for centuries while the galaxy mocked them as emotional animals. Meanwhile, in space, chaos deepened. An Ocean captain screamed for help as his ship spun slowly toward an asteroid field, only to stop inches before collision as Terran override froze it again, showing terrifying precision. A Kel commander fell to his knees as he watched his dreadnought power down layer by layer like a dying heartbeat. The most advanced fleet in the galaxy, the Council Peace Armada, found its weapons locked into training mode, unable to fire even by accident, while every screen on every ship across its 57 vessels displayed two words: subordinate mode. Admirals wept in humiliation. Captains prayed. Soldiers held their breath as if one wrong move could anger a ghost watching them. Because that was the truth. No human ship was visible anywhere. No human fleet was attacking. No human soldier was shouting threats. Humanity wasn't even present in the skies they controlled. And that absence, that invisible hand directing the galaxy like a puppeteer, was far more terrifying than any invasion. The council chairwoman, pale and shaking, slammed her fist on the table and yelled, "Send the Terran ambassador here now." But the chamber doors opened before her guards could move, and a trembling messenger whispered, "He is gone, ma'am. He left his station. His entire delegation left." They removed all human personnel from council grounds. The room fell silent in horror. Humans had withdrawn. Humans had taken their seat back. Humans had stopped listening. And when the Council demanded a direct channel to Earth, the system flashed red with a single flat response. Human channels unavailable. Suddenly, the galaxy realized something ancient, something their ancestors had known but their arrogance had forgotten. Humans do not shout when they prepare for war. They go silent. And now the silence had swallowed every star system, every fleet, every empire. Across worlds, civilians stared at the sky with shaking breath. Parents held their children close. Old veterans whispered old human war legends they hoped were exaggerations. But deep inside, every species understood they had awakened a sleeping beast. A species that tolerated for centuries but now moved with a cold, calculated precision that felt like fate snapping shut. And as thousands of alien captains stood frozen on powerless bridges, they watched in helpless terror as the final message appeared on every screen, every device, every ship, every station in perfect synchronized timing. This is a warning, not a war. Do not force US to continue. The galaxy trembled, because humans had proven one thing. They didn't need to fire a single shot to bring the entire galaxy to its knees. The Galactic Council chamber, once filled with arrogant cheers and glittering banners, now sat under a suffocating silence as ambassadors trembled in their seats, staring at the frozen screens that displayed the same Terran override warning, and the room smelled of fear. Cold, metallic, choking, while guards shifted nervously, gripping weapons they could no longer trust to work, because every soldier, every politician, every species in that chamber knew that if humanity flipped one more switch, every defense system in the galaxy could be erased in seconds. And just when panic reached its breaking point, the lights in the chamber flickered, dimmed, then stabilized as the tall doors opened slowly with a low mechanical hum that echoed across the hall like a funeral drum, and the human ambassador, Ambassador Rhys Hale, walked in. But he didn't walk like a diplomat, he walked like a man who carried truth heavier than any weapon, his boots quiet against the polished floor, his expression unreadable, his eyes cold like Terran winter storms, and every alien in the chamber stiffened with instinctive fear because he didn't look angry, he didn't look emotional. He looked disappointed, and that emotion was far worse. He stood in the center of the chamber, and with one small motion of his hand, the floating screens flickered again, replacing the override warnings with live feeds from across the galaxy. Council fleets frozen, warships drifting, entire armadas disabled, planets defenseless. All without a single Terran ship firing a weapon, and the ambassadors stared in horror as their proud fleets hung like dead metal statues under the invisible grip of Terran command. Ambassador Rhys let them watch for several seconds before finally raising his head, his voice hauntingly calm as he said, "You declared us subordinate, and we obeyed." And his words rippled through the chamber like a shockwave, because the tone wasn't submission. It was sarcasm, cold and lethal, the kind that makes generals sweat. He continued, "We followed your decree exactly. We stopped interfering. We allowed your fleets to operate without resistance." And then his voice dropped lower, more chilling, "And this is what happened." And the screens zoomed out, showing hundreds of Council fleets offline, entire border systems in chaos, empires helpless, and ambassadors broke into whispers of terror. What do they want? Why aren't they negotiating? Why are they silent? But Rhys silenced them with a single raised hand. He then stepped closer to the Council podium and said 8 words that shattered every shred of arrogance left in the room. "You declared us subordinate. Now live with it." Gasps filled the chamber, some ambassadors recoiling as if struck, the chairwoman stumbling back in her seat, her voice trembling as she shouted, "You can't do this. This is an act of war." But Rhys simply tilted his head, eyes emotionless, replying, "If humans wanted war, you wouldn't be here to complain." And a hush fell over the room, so suffocating that even the guards breathed quietly. Rhys then tapped his wrist, and instantly every console, every hollow screen, every device in the chamber powered down, plunging the galaxy's most powerful political structure into darkness, not because humanity attacked, but because humanity chose to turn the lights off, proving they now controlled every wire, every frequency, every system the Council ever built. When the lights flickered back on seconds later, Ambassador Rhys spoke again, voice soft yet sharp as a blade. "We did not shut your systems down to harm you. We shut them down to show you how easily we can." and fear stabbed through every heart in the room as he continued. For 300 years, humanity remained peaceful because we believed the galaxy wanted peace. But you do not want peace. You want control. And he gestured at the frozen images of council fleets, adding, "Now you see what true control looks like." He stepped closer to the chairwoman, who was visibly shaking, her hands trembling as she clutched her robe, and Reese whispered with chilling calm, "This is the last time you will underestimate us," before turning away, letting that sentence echo like thunder. He then stood tall, looking at every ambassador as he declared, "Reverse the decree, restore our autonomy, and acknowledge humanity as an independent sovereign power, or remain subordinate under your own law." The chamber erupted in panicked murmurs. Independent power? They can't demand this. We'll collapse without human tech. But Reese didn't blink, didn't raise his voice, didn't argue. He simply stared at them with the quiet confidence of a species that didn't need weapons to win. Finally, the Kel representative, shaking badly, whispered, What happens if we refuse?" And Reese looked at him gently, almost sadly, and replied, "Then we will continue obeying your decree." And every ambassador understood the threat hidden behind that calm statement. If humans remained subordinate, they could shut down every council, planet, every fleet, every weapon, every trade system, every stargate, every economy, leaving the entire galaxy powerless under human silence, not war. And for the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Council, proud rulers of 1,000 worlds, sat trembling in front of one human man. And Ambassador Reese Hale, without raising a single weapon, without shouting a single word, without making a single threat, turned toward the exit and spoke the final sentence that broke the galaxy's spine. "Fear is not our goal. Respect is our demand." Then he walked out, leaving the council in a silence far more terrifying than his presence. A silence the galaxy would remember for generations. The silence of humans who no longer pretended to be peaceful. The council chamber was still trembling from Ambassador Reese's final words when the galaxy felt something impossible. Space itself seemed to shift, as if gravity briefly forgot its purpose, a silent tremor rolling across star systems without warning. And every species instinctively looked upward even if they were underground, as if their bodies sensed a predator stepping into the room long before their eyes could see it. Then millions of detection towers, early warning scanners, and deep space observatories across the galaxy lit up at once, alarms screaming in every empire, flashing the same impossible reading. Unidentified mass arrival scale. Cosmic. In the ocean clusters, scientists gasped as their telescopes zoomed in on the dead belt, only to see the stars vanish behind a moving wall of darkness. In the Vorath domain, military officers shouted in confusion as their war map filled with thousands of new signatures forming a perfect circle around council territory. In the Kel Federation, children cried as the sky dimmed unnaturally, blocked by shapes too large and too silent to be anything but warships. And then the truth hit like lightning. The Terran fleet, the real fleet, the fleet humanity had hidden for centuries, the fleet no species ever imagined existed, was emerging from behind the dead belt, moving in perfect formation like an ocean of night swallowing the stars. These were not the small human ships the galaxy knew. These were Titans, black-hulled dreadnoughts, stealth cruisers, gravity shield carriers, ships with no glowing engines, no flashy colors, no noise, no insignias. Just pure, silent power crafted with terrifying purpose. Their surfaces absorbing starlight like living shadows. Their movements smoother than nature, faster than logic, and more precise than any AI the galaxy had ever built. Not a single weapon was turned on. Not one gun was firing. Yet every species watching felt like these ships could erase planets with a whisper. The largest dreadnought led the formation, a massive black spearhead so enormous that it blocked a full moon and half its stars, and it sent a single coded signal, heard simultaneously in every council world, every empire, every starship, every listening post. A deep, resonant pulse that made every alien fall silent as their screens displayed the same chilling message. We did not come to fight. We came to be seen. And suddenly the galaxy understood the truth. Humans had not brought their fleet to threaten, they brought it to teach, to show what they had always hidden, to remind the galaxy that peace was humanity's choice, not their limit. Pandemonium erupted across the council chamber. Ambassadors shouting, some collapsing, some praying, some already drafting surrender terms, while the Tremorian elder simply closed his eyes in defeat, whispering, "The old legends were true." They hid their strength until someone forced their hand. But the chairwoman shook with denial, slamming her trembling hands on the table, yelling, "Why didn't we know about these ships? How did they build this?" And the elder answered without looking at her, "Because humans do not build fleets to show off. They build fleets to end wars before they begin." Outside, the Terran ships drifted silently into position, forming an unbroken ring around council space, each ship holding perfect distance, perfect alignment, perfect stillness, like 1,000 swords pointed downward, waiting for the hand that could lift them. Civilian worlds panicked, watching their skies darken under the impossible silhouettes, and children clung to their parents while adults whispered in dread, "What do humans want? Why are they here?" But no human voice answered, no threat was made, no declaration of war was broadcast. Only silence, crushing and deliberate, the silence of a species that didn't need to shout to be heard. And then, slowly, the colossal flagship activated its external speakers, projecting its message across star systems like a storm whispering through galaxies. "We do not seek war. We seek respect." Thousands of alien admirals stared at the words with frozen breath as the message continued. "Reverse the decree. Restore our autonomy. Acknowledge our right to stand as equals." The final line was quieter, more dangerous, spoken like a final offer. "This is your only chance for peace." And as the massive Terran fleet hovered in silent formation, stretching across the void like a sleeping god awakening, the galaxy finally understood that humans were not a subordinate species. They were the storm the galaxy had prayed would never return. The Terran fleet hung in the void like a ring of judgment around the Galactic Council's territory, its black hulls absorbing starlight, its silent engines humming with power ancient species had never imagined humans possessed. And every world, rich, poor, mighty, or small, felt the same crushing truth sinking into their bones. The galaxy was no longer in control, humanity was, and not through bloodshed, not through invasion, but through a calm, terrifying display of power that made every empire understand how fragile their dominance truly was. Inside the council chamber, ambassadors who had once mocked humans were now pale and shaking, some whispering apologies under their breath, some unable to speak at all. And when the chairwoman finally stood, her voice cracked as she said, "We will vote," immediately. But the Tremorian elder stopped her with a trembling hand and whispered, "There is nothing to vote on. We must surrender with dignity while we still can." And the chamber filled with defeated silence, a silence deeper than any war cry, until at last the council transmitted a message to the Terran fleet. "Decree 77 is revoked. Humanity is hereby recognized as an independent power." The moment the message was sent, the massive Terran dreadnought at the fleet center glowed faintly, not with weapons, but with acknowledgement, like a nod from a giant, and then a single figure stepped forward onto its command bridge, Ambassador Rhys Hale. His calm eyes watching the terrified council members displayed on his holographic screen as he spoke with the same quiet strength that had shattered their arrogance earlier. "Independence was never our true demand." And the ambassadors looked, confused, trembling as Rhys continued, "Power was never our goal." And his voice softened even more, carrying an emotion that pierced every heart in the chamber. "We wanted one truth to be understood. Humans are peaceful by choice." His final sentence struck the galaxy like a meteor as he said, "Never mistake our peace for weakness again." And then something unbelievable happened. The massive Terran ships slowly rotated away from council space, their engines lighting with a cold blue glow as they began slipping back into the dark, like shadows returning to sleep, and worlds across the galaxy exhaled in shaky relief. But there was no celebration, no cheering, only stunned awe, because the fleet didn't retreat like a threat removed. It left like a guardian stepping back, having delivered its warning. On alien worlds, crowds watched. The ships vanish one by one, dissolving into the deep black like a dream dissolving at dawn, and soldiers wept quietly, humbled by the mercy humans displayed. Even the council chairwoman bowed her head as the final dreadnought disappeared, whispering, "They could have ended us, but they chose to spare us. And that truth spread faster than fear. Humanity did not stay peaceful because they were weak. They stayed peaceful because they were strong enough to destroy, yet wise enough not to. In the days that followed, every empire restructured its treaties, rewriting history, teaching children the true meaning of respect, and statues were erected on countless worlds honoring the day humanity revealed their real strength. Not the strength of weapons, but the strength of restraint. And far from the Council, deep in Terran space, the hidden fleets returned to silence, docking in ancient rings, their lights dimming as Athena Prime shut down combat protocols, whispering across the Terran network, "Standby complete." And humans across colonies resumed their daily lives as if nothing extraordinary had happened, because for them, protecting their dignity was not extraordinary at all. It was survival, instinct, identity. As the sun rose over Earth, Admiral Kale stood at a window overlooking the ocean, his hands behind his back, his expression calm as he whispered, "We are not superior, we are simply prepared." And on distant worlds, alien leaders repeated that line with respect, fear, and admiration, knowing the galaxy would never again judge humanity as manageable, because they had seen the truth with their own eyes. Humans were the quiet storm, peaceful when left alone, unstoppable when pushed, merciful when strong, and terrifying when silent. And so the galaxy bowed its head, not in defeat, but in understanding, forever changed by the day it learned the most important lesson in cosmic history. Humans were peaceful because they chose to be.